Bibarel tends to be involved in a lot of Pokemon jokes and memes, which tends to be the case with a lot of the early route normal type Pokemon in the game. We discussed this a few weeks ago when we featured Furret on the worst Pokemon series. However, Bibarel and especially its pre-evolution Bidoof tend to be involved in a lot more jokes than the other Pokemon. This is probably because they're both much goofier looking than any other Pokemon in this category, which might attribute to why people think Bibarel is a bad competitive Pokemon. Since Bibarel won the community poll to be featured in the next episode of the worst Pokemon series, we will take a look at Bibarel and discuss if it is the worst Pokemon or not. Now before we get too far into this, it's important to understand that this series focuses on competitive battling, which is very different than battling in-game against NPCs or gym leaders like that. If you're newer to competitive Pokemon, I recommend you check out the description so you can have a better understanding of how this works. We will rate Bibarel on a scale 1 through 5 based on offense, defense, versatility, movepool, and overall viability. If Bibarel doesn't excel in any of these categories, then it might just be the worst Pokemon out there. Make sure you guys leave a like down below as it really helps the channel a ton, and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss a future upload. If you guys want to recommend a Pokemon to be featured in the next poll for the worst Pokemon series, leave a comment down below, but before you do so, make sure you check out the full worst Pokemon series playlist in the description to see if I've already made a video on the Pokemon you want to see. Keep an eye on your sub feed for the next poll, and now let's talk a little bit more about Bibarel. Bibarel is a normal and water-type Pokemon introduced in Generation 4 with the abilities Moody, Simple, and Unaware. These are some pretty unique abilities, which isn't too common for early route Pokemon or Pokemon featured in the worst Pokemon series. Bibarel has a stat line of 79 HP, 85 attack, 60 defense, 55 special attack, 60 special defense, and 71 speed. One quick look at these stats and you could probably understand why Bibarel was voted to be in the worst Pokemon series. But before we talk about Bibarel's negatives, let's talk about some of Bibarel's positives. So for the first positive and the longest positive, you have 3 good abilities. Moody is a little bit gimmicky, but it does raise a random stat by 2 stages at the end of each turn at the cost of lowering a random stat by 1 stage. If you're lucky and get this boost in attack, you will do some serious damage, but if you're unlucky you could easily get a boost in a stat that doesn't help you and drop a stage in another stat that you don't want to drop. The odds aren't really in your favor here, but it's still a cool ability to have. Next up we have Simple, which doubles the effect of a Pokemon stat when it's raised or when it's lowered. This essentially means that Workup would raise your attack stat and your special attack stat by 2 stages instead of 1, however the game calculates these stat boosts a little bit differently than a normal stat boost. Even though you would get the benefit of having 2 stat raises, the game only treats it as 1 stage, but it does not calculate these effects past +6, which would be insane. This was probably implemented so Baton Pass with Simple wouldn't be too overpowered, although this little factoid doesn't really affect too much about Pokemon. This ability is most commonly used on Swoobat as well with Calm Mind, but Bibarel could take advantage of Simple as well. And the last ability we have is Unaware, which interestingly is also another ability that Swoobat has. This ability ignores opposing Pokemon stat changes, essentially rendering your opponent's setup turns useless. This can be really helpful, however out of the 3 abilities I think it's the one that you'll use the least on Bibarel. For the next positive, Bibarel has some pretty decent setup options. You have Swords Dance, Workup, and Curse, all of which work well with Simple, and you have some nice support options as well, with moves like Stealth Rocks, Thunder Wave, and Taunt. And now on to the negatives. For the first negative, Bibarel has some pretty low bulk. 79 in HP is Bibarel's best bulk stat, which really isn't that great. 60 in both defenses is very underwhelming as well, making Bibarel a pretty terrible defensive Pokemon. Bibarel also has some pretty low offenses, as 85 in attack isn't the worst attack we've seen in this series, but it certainly isn't very strong. 55 in special attack is virtually unusable as well, which really is a shame since Bibarel has some pretty nice special moves that you can't take advantage of. And for the last negative, Bibarel has some pretty poor overall coverage. Bibarel will struggle doing much more than going for stab returns and stab waterfalls, although it does at least have a stat priority move in Aqua Jet, which is kind of nice. Outside of these, there really aren't too many offensive options, which really limits your coverage. Now moving on to the ratings, in terms of offense, I will give Bibarel a rating of 2 out of 5. Now I decided to give Bibarel a 2 out of 5 in offense because although 85 in attack is pretty low, Bibarel does have access to Simple, which does help it out a lot offensively, and I guess you could count Moody as well, although that is much more RNG based than an ability like Simple. If it didn't have the Simple ability, I would have easily given Bibarel a 1 out of 5 in offense. For defense, I will give Bibarel a 1 out of 5 because Bibarel's defenses are very underwhelming with only 79 HP and 60 in both defenses. The Ghost immunity is kind of nice on the defensive side, but that doesn't really mean all that much if you can't take too many hits regardless. For versatility, I will give Bibarel a 2 out of 5. Now, thanks to Bibarel's abilities, there is a degree of versatility here. You could run a more offensive set with Simple and Swords Dance to maximize damage, or you could run a more defensive set with Unaware or Simple, and the move Curse to raise your defenses. These aren't amazing options, but they're still options worth considering, which does help Bibarel's case just a little bit. For Movepool, I'll give Bibarel a rating of 1.5 out of 5. Now, Bibarel's Movepool is very underwhelming all around. There are a few nice options sprinkled in there like Stealth Rocks, Aqua Jet, and Taunt, but if you look at Bibarel's Movepool as a whole, there really isn't all that much to talk about here. It's not completely useless, hence the reason why I give it a 1.5 instead of a 1, but it is far from being considered a good Movepool. And for Viability, I will give Bibarel a 1 out of 5. Sadly, there just isn't too much of a reason to use Bibarel competitively, although at least it does have a nice little niche thanks to its moody and simple abilities. But there's so many other Pokemon that are just so much better than Bibarel, meaning there's no real reason to use this Pokemon. One thing Bibarel does have going for it at least is its unique typing, as it is the only normal and water type Pokemon that is in the game currently. Now, in terms of a Bibarel moveset you could use, first off we have Smogon's offensive set, which is Bibarel with the Life Orb, Simple Ability, Max Attack, Max Speed, Adamant Nature, Swords Dance, Return, Waterfall, and Aqua Jet. This is a pure offensive set that takes advantage of the Simple Ability, and it's one of the best Bibarel sets you could run. After one Swords Dance, you could pull off a late game sweep thanks to the move Aqua Jet, if you position your Bibarel accordingly. It's not the most effective sweeper, but it can happen. Next up we have a bulkier Resto Chesto set, which is Bibarel with the Chesto Berry, Simple Ability, Max HP, Max Special Defense, Careful Nature, Curse, Waterfall, Quick Attack, and Rest. Since Bibarel lacks reliable recovery, Rest with the Chesto Berry is the closest thing it will get. The Simple Ability helps raise attack and defense as well, which complements the max EV investment in special defense. Now, if you were to decide to use Bibarel in your team for whatever reason, some potential partners you could pair with your Bibarel would be Ghost and Grass types to cover Bibarel's weaknesses. Gourgeist fits this bill very well as it is a Grass type and a Ghost type, which complements Bibarel's typings very nicely. Assuming you're using Bibarel's in Smogon's PU tier, you could also include other PU Ghost types on your team, like Spiritomb and even possibly Jumpluff, since it does resist fighting and has that Grass typing. In terms of some improvements to make Bibarel a little bit better, first thing I'd like to see is a better move pool. I think Bibarel should have access to offensive moves like Earthquake and Knockoff, both of which I think would help it a lot, and a general overall stat buff would be very, very nice. I think a boost to 100 in attack, 80 in speed, and 70 in both defenses would be great, and although these seem like a lot of stat buffs, I don't think these would push Bibarel to be overpowered. Bibarel is a little bit tricky when it comes to suggesting stat buffs, however, since it does have access to Simple, which makes things a little bit more difficult. And that is Bibarel. Is Bibarel the worst Pokemon? Let me know what you guys think of Bibarel in the comment section down below for a chance to have your comment featured on the next worst Pokemon video, like this comment right here. Personally, I think Bibarel is a pretty bad Pokemon, but I don't think Bibarel is nearly as bad as everyone might think it actually is. Make sure you guys leave a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe with notifications turned on if you haven't already as well. One like really does go a long way, and I really do appreciate it. Also be sure to let me know in the comments down below which Pokemon you'd like to see featured in a future worst Pokemon video, and keep an eye out on the community tab of my channel for a poll for the next voting of the worst Pokemon series. Thank you guys so much for watching, have a great rest of your day, I will see you guys next time, and bye bye.